All right, I will call the work session for 5/7/2020 to order at 4:55. And we're going to turn it over to Dr. Cole with the items of information.
Thank you, Chairman Edgy. We're going to go in the order, just do our departments to give updates, and then they're going to also get, if it's okay with you guys, any proposed action items that are underneath their departments. So I'm going to let Mr. McKenzie start first with a little update from his area, and then one of his little proposed action items on here.
Yeah, certainly. Good afternoon. The legal compliance has been asked to take care of all of the leave issues that our employees have been dealing with during this time, which has been an extremely busy area. As you can probably imagine, we've got two sets of employees, if you want to look at it that way. During the pandemic, we have our home-based staff and our work-based staff, and those individuals, all essential individuals, of course, but some actually coming to work every day in buildings such as central office, those staff members that Dr. Cole needs here, and of course our other staff that are at home. It creates a unique set of situations, however, when you start looking at how to deal with time, how to deal with time off, how to deal with if people get sick or if people have to leave town. And so we've been working through those leave issues and basically looking at it from the standpoint of them, since everyone is being paid, then they are, if they have to be off of work or if they have to leave, then we would go through the normal leave protocols and leave procedures. Then recently we have also been tasked with enforcing the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which the President signed into law not very long ago. Of course, it became effective on April 1st, and it will expire on the 31st of December this year. And what this act does is it extends and expands paid leave entitlements for individuals who are on sick leave and family medical leave also. You don't have to qualify for family medical leave under the same criteria. 30 days of work is all it takes as opposed to an actual year. And it does provide for paid leave under certain employment categories and certain income levels if you meet certain criteria set out by the Act. And so we are, of course, we haven't had to deal with any of that quite yet because just about all of our employees are being paid. And but we will have to be dealing with this in the future, and so I wanted to make sure that we recognize that leave has been a big issue. It's been keeping us busy, and that is basically what we have been tasked with doing during this time. Any questions?
Has there been people calling in for sick leave?
Yeah, we've had individuals, for instance, who they're at work at home, but they, especially when in the earlier days when things were a little uncertain and they had family out of town or individuals they wanted to be with, and everyone, for all intents and purposes, they're teleworking, so they can do it at their home. They could do it in another state. So there were individuals who were saying, well, listen, I'm going to go be with my parents, I'm going to go be with my loved ones, and I'll continue to work from there. And we had to start making decisions of saying, oh, no, you have to be here if you're going to, since you're being paid. If you decide to go out of town, then we are going to, of course, be using your sick leave or other leave for that purpose. And so trying to enforce leave in that regard and making sure people understood that if you are getting paid, you need to be at home and available for your principal and be available for meetings and so forth while on the payroll.
Interesting. I'd like to see what the numbers would reflect from April last year, April this year, sick leave and leave.
Well, we haven't had too many people that have actually done it, but we've had a few we've had to deal with. We've also had others too that were on sick leave when all this started for whatever reason, and maybe it was a maternity leave or maybe some other type of paid leave, and or unpaid leave because they've exhausted all their paid leave options. And so now that they could be at home and receive income, receive remuneration, then they said, well, why don't we just come off of leave at this time, even though they weren't off leave when it started and probably would not have been off leave if school was still in session, and in order to start a paycheck going. So those are the kind of things we kind of had to deal with and make sure we were making the right decisions there. for all employees, and making sure we could do something that, not just painting it with a broad brush, but making sure that we were doing something that was consistent and fair.
Interesting.
Okay. The other piece that I have here is a policy update for the DJE policy on purchasing. We put it on the table last time. I presented it last time we were here. It has been subject to public review for the last month now or so on our website. We've received no comments on it, and as you're aware, it just changes the purchasing the amounts that are required for the superintendent to have approval or board approval for certain purchasing areas, and we have had no comment, no objections to it. So I'm requesting the board to have this on the board agenda for upcoming board meeting, if there be no objections or discussions at this time, for a board vote.
I appreciate that, all that goes into it, and I do get it. I would like to keep it for another month, and the reason I say that is because we've had so many different things going on, you know, trying to get a new superintendent, figuring out that process, and COVID and all of that. There's not been enough opportunity for some people, from some of the feedback that I've got, to look at it and do some stuff. So if we can leave it on another month, I don't think that's going to negatively impact us at all.
That's fine.
That's okay with you.
Table it.
Yeah. So we won't put it on the agenda.
Thank you.
Like, how many times in a month or in a quarter do you find yourself saying, oh gosh, I gotta make this $25,000 purchase and I can't wait till the next board meeting? Or, you know, so what's the, I mean, I understand, I mean, it'd be nice to, I'm sure there are cases, but I mean, how often does it really happen where
It's
you?
not that common. It's just one of those things as time's gone on, when it was like lower, say 10,000, I don't know how long ago it was like that. We were going to board for every little thing that might not, you know, be of such a big consequence
Sure.
of inflation. So then so over the years, it's just increased to that point where we believe those aren't huge purchases that really need that, but that's kind of the thinking behind that mainly. Not to burden the board with every little
Sure.
decision, but I understand sometimes there's more oversight that y'all like as well. So that's just balancing that oversight versus, you know, bringing every, you know, thing to the board for those kind of purchases as time's gone on.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I heard in the discussions were there areas where the purchases were up to $3,500. They were excluded, but over $3,500 they had to come to the board. So it went from so this new option in policy takes it from $3,500 and makes the threshold $10,000. So that just makes it gives it a little more wiggle room to get something done. So, you know, but because $3,500 was just very low, especially with inflation and with things changing the way they have.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, so I heard Mr. McKenzie, let me just
Sure.
go ahead and jump in. I heard Mr. McKenzie talking about the impact of COVID-19 on leave situations. So of course, it has had an impact on unemployment. And I just wanted the board to know it is really our goal in HR. We certainly are following the guidelines that the Department of Labor has put forward. But really our focus also has been to make sure we're keeping our employees as informed as we can, that we are available to answer questions and provide any guidance that they need. But at this point in time, we are actually filing for our employees. So, I don't know. Dr. Wolf, you had anything to add to that?
Anything, any questions? Ms. Benton?
What's the plan going forward with teachers? I heard some people talking the other day, it was just a group of parents, and you know, those things go, saying that we're gonna have them come back, just the teachers relatively soon. But what's the plan for, like, cleaning rooms, you know, getting their stuff out, like you would close out a year? When are we gonna?
We didn't set a certain date for
Right.
them like this month that they had to, but we did ask for the principals to allow, you know, have some schedule that's, you know, safe.
If they wanted to come in, they could
Exactly.
come in and
And
say.
then hopefully by the end of the year, everybody has a chance to come in and close out everything.
Okay.
We are asking probably a report back to work for everybody June 1st, but that's obviously the teachers
Yeah.
beyond their time. So at that point on June 1st, we have some APs that are still on contract. Principals obviously would be
Right.
our custodians and other people who have been working anyway. So, but that, I think that's a safe take to kind of shoot for. And at that point, you're not talking about 6, 7 in a building, not,
Right.
you know, so that's good.
Thank you.
And the only other thing I wanted to mention to you, last time I was here, we talked about taking our job fair from an in-person job fair and moving it to a virtual job fair. Well, in light of lots of factors, we've decided we're not going to move forward with a virtual job fair. But I want you to know one of the biggest factors in that decision is that right now, all 4 of our middle and our high schools are just about fully staffed for next year. Granted, we continue to get resignations and at this point, possibly even retirements, but we are very well staffed with our middle and high school. We do have some openings in elementary, but we feel like what we're doing, our web presence and putting things out there via any way we can besides having a job fair face-to-face, we're doing well in staffing for next year. Another thing that we talked about is hopefully we're looking at maybe just as soon as we can. I know there's been some conversation about July for graduation, so maybe June we can schedule a face-to-face job fair for our classified staff, and there we could control the number of people coming in and things like that. So we're still going to try to move forward with a face-to-face for classified, but we feel like we're in good shape with our certified without doing a virtual job fair this year. So.
Do you send out flyers?
Mm-hmm. And we have, yes, we have. You mean when we have a face-to-face?
No, just arbitrarily send out. I get them all the time from hospitals all over the place, emails, everything. And I was just wondering if we did the same thing.
No, we don't arbitrarily just kind of send them out. We use our web presence as really our best way to advertise what we need and what we're looking for. Did that answer your question?
Kinda.
Yeah.
What they tell me that is what they do is they look at the region and they find out everybody that has a license, and then they send them we're looking for, and it's not really that hard to do, I wouldn't think. I don't know from the teacher's standpoint.
It's usually a service like that that people subscribe to that push out those type of job announcements and stuff like that.
But you always know who's
Yeah.
hiring.
I get some,
50 about 60 emails I do today is
Yeah.
those things.
So
Anyway.
I didn't mention this when I was talking about the unemployment, which has been a huge undertaking. And Dr. Shelley Nelson in HR has really been leading that for our department. So just wanted to make sure.
For unemployment, what type of employee, because I feel like most certified employees,
Yeah. So, Dr. Jurgen, this is for any of our employees who had a secondary type position with us. So you could be a classroom teacher and teach in the after school.
okay.
But once we were no longer, that option to work in after school. So it might be employees like that. Certainly it is substitute employees. We even have a few bus drivers who would run midday routes, field trip routes, those kind of employees. So they are eligible, and it was our responsibility to make sure we got that information to the Department of Labor because the opportunity to work was taken away.
How's the success in that? I mean, I know it's a lot of work. We've had to go through that. And have y'all been successful in it?
Yes, we, in fact, I'm sure Dr. Cole is well aware of this. We identified a little over 800 of our employees that were possibly eligible for this partial unemployment. And so we have uploaded and pushed out the 7 weeks so far that we could report. And that was just completed yesterday.
Okay.
Getting those,
If you ever work with unemployment, that's a huge undertaking.
Yes.
Yes.
Some of you done that. So
Every week you gotta
yeah, it's
reapply.
a huge deal, and I think HR and Dr.
Yep.
Nelson's done a great job.
So.
I think it's important to note, too, that you still have to apply even though an employee isn't going to receive benefits. If they've earned over that $300 threshold, they're not getting anything for it, but you still have to file it.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, that'll work.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett.
Dr. Whitehead will come in next.
Ethan.
Good evening.
Hey,
So just a few updates from my areas this afternoon. Shortly after we had the last meeting, the state canceled EOCs for the summer. So the last time I was here, they still had the summer window in place. They have since canceled that. So students can still take EOC courses for initial credit in the summer. They just still will not have the end of course assessment, and the 30% that we have locally, 20% at the state would be waived from their grade. So if students have the opportunity to take those courses in the summer through our high schools, then that's still an option to do. Just an update on the AP testing. We talked about that a little bit the last time. AP testing will begin on Monday, May 11th. It'll run through May 22nd. Times now for the AP tests are global. So any students who are taking an AP exam in a content area all around the world, students are going to be taking that same assessment at the same time, and it's going to be online, accessible from any digital device that the student has that's internet accessible. If students have connectivity issues, they can handwrite their responses and take a photo and upload the photo from their phone of their responses. If they have significant technical issues, they're going to submit a form to College Board about those technical issues, and they'll have an opportunity in June to do makeup testing. One of the things that's a little unusual for us is, unlike ACT or SAT, who have also been making adjustments, AP is based on course content that our teachers have been teaching our students, and so we definitely feel ownership in that process. So I did reach out and ask our tech department to review what had been posted on College Board to give advice to students about things to prepare. And in addition to the things that they would find if they go online, College Board has prepared an AP exam prep list for students that they can download and work through. Is just making sure that our families as well know that some of the best ways to support the students at home, besides removing just some distractions, is not making the younger children's distraction be something that's going to take up bandwidth in their household. So making sure that they're very cognizant of that, but making sure that all virus scans have been run on their computers well ahead of Monday, if they start testing Monday, and that all their web browsers and things have been updated. It will be an open note, open book assessment, but not to be able to be searchable in another browser or another tab on your computer or your device. So students will need to know to have their notes and things available to them to work through. But will be an interesting process for sure to see how that runs. And again, those assessments are only supposed to include material that would have been taught through March. Again, not designed to be a disadvantage for those students. Adjustments are being made for registration and enrollment for new students as we waited for rollout of information from the state level. We've worked locally. I've been working with Mrs. Spence at Central Registration last week to develop a procedure that we're testing out with some principals this week, that we will end up setting up an online calendar that will be public facing for people to make appointments for Central Registration to go in to do the processes that they need to do in that office. And then Central Registration, based on the readiness of that family to go to the school, will set up an appointment at the school during established hours for the family then to go to the school to complete the enrollment process. At the latest, we expect those appointments will begin on May 18th, but it could possibly be sooner next week. And they have been collecting names and phone numbers of families that have been coming into the area over the last couple of weeks since we've been closed. And those families will be contacted first about coming in to take care of those needs. So we will update the website as soon as we have those additional details ready to roll. And then the last update is that even though we are going through some of these changes, the summer interdistrict transfer application will still open June 1st. That application will only include schools with availabilities for different grade bands based on our allotments and the capacity in those schools. But that will open up June 1st, and those applications are available on the district website. Again, those applications will also go through that same review for looking at history of grades, attendance, and behavior. That would be kind of that review process in addition to the capacity levels at each of the schools. So, I don't know if you have any questions about those things, but just a few quick updates.
I have a question, and I think it might fall in your area. So in June, ACT had scheduled a test date for the 13th, SAT for the 6th. SAT has canceled theirs, but ACT so far has not. So are we ready for that because we've got a testing site at both high schools?
I think they're still gonna have to work with the coordinators at the high schools to make sure that the spaces are gonna meet whatever guidelines we have available, and working with our custodial departments and things to make sure that we have, you know, prior to everything being ready, and then what would happen when the groups leave the building, so.
And I just wondered if it's going to require extra proctors. I know tomorrow, I believe, is the deadline to register for it. So I don't guess we'll have final numbers as to how many to plan for until next week,
Right.
maybe? Okay, so, and, you know, if they're still registering people, I'm thinking they're going forward with this, even though SAT didn't, but,
Right.
okay.
So, and we're just continuing to monitor that, like we are other things, kind of on a daily basis. It's like you think something's moving forward, and then 2 hours later, there's
Right.
an email that something has changed, but.
Yes, thank
yes,
you.
yes.
For the AP test, the proctors, is there, when you're taking it, do you have a proctor on the computer? So how do you know they don't open up a tab?
The browser it will lock them out. So they have features, we actually have those features when students take the end of course or end of grade, that if they try to go anywhere else, it locks them out of the assessment. They do have software that will be running to check for plagiarism and other pieces like that as well through AP. Again, it's a new venture for them, so you know, we'll see how it works. All of the questions that will be on the assessments are going to be open response, so there's not going to be multiple choice or anything like that. They will actually do an extended response to their questions.
And with a 45-minute window, you better not be checking your notes too
Yeah.
much. You better know what you're going to write.
It's gonna be good.
Yes.
But if you have poor typing skills, then you're penalized.
I guess you write it and
Only
take a
because of your
picture.
skills, not your
Yes.
knowledge.
And that's
Yeah.
where they do have that advantage of, or the, backup plan, that they can handwrite their response and take a picture and upload the picture, so.
It's just interesting from all the online tests and things that I've been through.
So lock you out of your computer, won't lock you out of your phone.
But remember when I told you about the, from the Philippines, it was interesting, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next person is virtually here, and that's, you hear me, Ms. Lewis, but we will pull you up here and let you give your update, please.
Yes. So first of all, since I wasn't there personally, I want to congratulate my new boss, Dr. Spitz. Just remember he was good to you when you were math coordinator.
Thank you.
But we're going to make a great team, and I'm looking forward to working with you. Just a few updates from the teaching and learning department. The Chromebooks, we checked out 1,488 Chromebooks total. And we'll start putting the process in returning the Chromebooks, and we'll begin with the seniors first on May 12th. It only makes sense that we start on May 12th because that's when senior grades will be due, so they can prepare for graduation. And then May 20th will be the last day for return for elementary and middle school. So we're in the process of getting the Chromebooks back. Also wanted to share with you a brief graduation update, and some of you probably already know this. I think Mr. Blackstone and Mr. Turner did a great job on Facebook, but July 9, 7:30 a.m. Glynn Academy will hold its graduation at the stadium. July 10, 7:30 a.m. Brunswick High will hold commencement in the stadium. 6:30 the night before, the students will come in to practice graduation. The students who cannot come to the graduation services or chose a different option will make arrangements with their individual principals. They will wear their cap and gown. They will have a photo op, and the principals will have all the pictures together, and they will display it at the commencement night, either before or after. So those details are not quite put into place, but they will recognize all seniors. And of course, we're looking at a regular graduation ceremony right now, but we never know what the future holds. So if new rules come out from the CDC, we'll certainly follow them as well. We're doing preliminary plans for summer school. Right now, we're looking at all bands, middle school and elementary, beginning in July. Again, we're just kind of hesitant, but we're trying to put the skeleton schedule in place so we will have something to offer. And we were looking at students who had deficiencies, especially in elementary. We sent out the first deficiency notices back in November, so parents knew where their children were and what they were lacking in. We sent out the second deficiency notice in February, so those children will have priority for summer school. And again, we don't have all the details yet because we don't know if we can run it as a regular summer school or we'll have to do a modified version. But we know our children need the remediation and intervention, so we're going to do our best to provide that. We're also beginning, and we're starting with kindergarten first, and we're looking at doing a digital report card for them. And we figured we'd start with kindergarten and we'd roll up to first grade, and that way our first graders, parents, they will already know what be familiarized with the report card. So be looking forward to more information on that. We're also working with our leaders and talking about remediation and intervention in the master schedules for next year. Like I said, you know, we're targeting our most critical needs for our children who look as though they could have possible retention for summer school, but we know that there's a lot of other children out there that need extra assistance. So we want to make sure we're providing some kind of system throughout the district for all children to make sure that our children are where they need to be. We're discussing some type of assessment. So we'll have some type of pre-assessment and maybe mid and maybe even end-of-year assessment. Again, those are just preliminary plans, but definitely we need an assessment at the beginning of the school year to see where our children are, so we'll know where to start their instruction plans. And that's it for me. Questions? Okay.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I had to not ride my bike for 3 miles. I got my hand popped for that, but other than that, I'm doing great.
That's a good thing.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis.
Good to hear.
All right, we will turn to Boudreaux for our facilities update, and I think he's got one or two things to maybe to be voted on for next week, so, Al, go ahead.
Well, again, congratulations, Dr. Smith. Look forward to working with you. Glynn Academy, science building. Project's on track. We have one little hiccup. The company that makes the epoxy science countertops, we're going to have a little delay on that, but it really shouldn't affect us for opening up in August if that comes to that. But things are looking very well over there. Additional parking, I think we're waiting on closing dates for the 2 pieces of property that we've put a retainer on. So we'll follow up with that once that happens. The Glynn Academy gym, PE edition, which is the auxiliary gym, the design work is well underway. And as Mr. Tooten and I looked at all the phases that are going to be involved with that project, we think it's best to go out for an RFQ for a construction manager. The 5 phases are going to be kind of tough to coordinate and pull off, so we're going to probably come to you next month with a recommendation for a construction manager. And the last time we used a construction manager was when we did the prep building. So that's a process I think that would suit us on the new gym.
You put those bids out, is it now or this month?
The RFQ, the request for qualifications for the CM is going out the next day or two.
Okay.
So hopefully next month we can bring a recommendation back for CM at risk for that. Athletic fields, Etta Miller, Lanier, they're getting it hard and heavy over there. The fencing is pretty close to being done. The concrete work is almost done. They start to do sidewalks. Next week they move the bleachers around, so he's going to finish that pretty well ahead of schedule. The big net has been approved, shop drawings approved, everything ready to go, so that's going to fall right into place. But unfortunately, there's nobody there to use it, so hopefully we'll get back on track with that. Altama, even though they dropped out for a week, they got right back on things, and they're still ahead of schedule. So Altama's looking very, very good. Center for the Arts, I think you'll talk about a little bit later.
Just so you know, we're still waiting on the IGA. Maybe something comes up in the executive session to discuss with you guys on that regard. But that's where we're at still.
East Bluffs 4, again, we're just,
I just want to say, I know contrary to some of the reporting by some, and even though nobody asked, y'all did not vote to, put it on the ballot. I think Mr. Holes even asked when the latest date we could go out for us. So we did vote to affirm, the list, and that was, I think a prudent thing to do where we're at, just kind of take a wait and see. I know y'all are very aware of what's going on in our community. You live through it and living through it. And so, we're just kind of moving through the steps, looking at where we're at, currently. That kind of feeds into what I'm gonna talk about with the Good Report. And I think you've got a copy there with your materials, but miraculously, we came out better than projected. We project for $1.7 million. This is really, it says April, but it's really March. And we had a couple weeks in there that we really kind of shut things down, but the receipts came in at $1.931 million. So that's $231,514 over what we budgeted for. So that's definitely good. As you can see, the trend is still kind of going up, like it's been really. Now, that doesn't mean I don't expect this to go down, obviously, in the next month or two for sure. But just driving around here, it's been very busy for sure, just getting around. I did want to point out on the first page that you've got, I think you've got the little the summary one. They did move the GA physical and re-roofing on East Floss 2. We had some money left over for that, so we're going to take some of that money from East Floss 2. So that was noted by Mr. Salmon, or Dr. Salmon. Also, as you can see, of course, the GA Science Building and the new Altama are still on schedule. That's on page 1. On page 3, I just mentioned that again, we are, the receipts where they were, we are, as of this date, we are 86% of where we projected. And Steve, Dr. Salmon believes if we just even maintain like 1.4 million for the rest of the next 8 months or 9 months, we would still meet what we projected anyway.
Go back a few, the GA Physical Ed building, which one is that?
that's the auxiliary gym that we're showing on our cash flow.
Okay, oh, okay. That's what we're about to start.
Practice gym, auxiliary
On
gym.
the old,
Yeah, it's gonna be,
The,
we're gonna call it, we hate to call it the new gym because we still call the existing gym the new gym.
Right.
So we're gonna call it the auxiliary gym or the practice gym.
Okay, all right. So this is not a gym or a building we just remodeled and we
No,
need a new
no.
roof?
this is,
Right.
that's the old
Yeah.
auxiliary gym.
But we need a new roof on the new gym.
Right.
Yeah,
A new
the
roof
new
on the
gym.
new gym, the existing gym. Anyway.
It's confusing. And last thing, again, I've just mentioned about the 86%, so if we maintain about 1.4 for the next 8 or 9 months, we will meet what our obligations of what we needed to anyway. So that's been the benefit that we've been able to collect more than we expected, and again, including this month, but we'll see how next month goes, but that's where we're at as of end of April. Steve did look online, and I know Andre will come in here in a second and talk about it, but while obviously certain areas of the East Floss were slower, people were, I know they're like my family, they're ordering a lot online, and now you can tax that. That's a huge thing. Some things like home improvement went through the roof for a lot of families. People are doing a lot more of that because they had time at home. So it's just an interesting mix of you can kind of look it up, but thankfully it was a little bit more than what we thought, but that may again just be this past month, but anyway, just wanted to share that with you guys. But as far as East Floss 4, we're just going to continue to monitor what we're doing, and again, I think that's a decision that we'll have to make whether we continue to put that on the ballot at a later time. But as of now, we're just kind of watching that for now. So that's where we're at.
What's the decision day?
I think we said April 1st or around there. I think by the beginning of our July
August.
board meeting, August, sorry.
Yeah.
I like, wait, I
I don't know
passed.
if any dates are clear. I think we're all in trouble with that. But July, I think the board meeting in July, y'all need to make, I think, that decision for whether to put that on the ballot or not.
Thank you.
Or some special call meeting or something at the end of that month. Sometimes we do that, with personnel, as y'all know. But I want to point that out. Any questions for Mr. Boudreaux?
Is it okay if I go ahead and do my elementary St. Simon's
Sorry,
fence?
go ahead.
And under proposed action items, we received proposals to do a decorative fence similar to what we have out around Glynn Academy on the front of St. Simon's Elementary School. Proposals came in the highest rated, the lowest cost, which we always like to see, was TNT fencing at $64,528. And that would be the recommendation for next week, to approve TNT to do that work. And this, 30,000 of that will be from our security grant. And the other we'll probably take out of East Bloss too, and finally with the roof at Glynn Academy gym, new gym, and this should just about close out East Bloss too, which would be great.
Now, when this fence is put in, if St. Simon's ever does get remodeled, will we design it so we can easy access in and out and not have to tear any of it down?
Yeah. That was the idea.
This is something they've long asked for a while.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Boudreaux.
Thank you.
Ms. Boudreaux?
Send in. Last but not least, Ms. Preston.
The money.
No money.
So the best for last, yeah.
We get to start with the fun stuff. Financial update. So it's online. I have a hard copy if anybody wants it.
I'll take a copy out. Mine's,
Okay.
I can't get my assembly to pull up.
Pass it on.
And then
Everyone, you got
Does
it?
anybody want one?
Anybody want a hard copy? Hard copy?
Miss Bobbitt, no. Oh, that's coming the other way.
I'm gonna keep all these.
So, have a little bit of good news, hopefully. Back on April the 7th, tax assessor sent me a digest that had a growth of real property of 2.67. And the last couple of years, we've been, whatever he gives me, we've been coming below that because of other components of the digest, the old car tax, and exemptions, of course. And so we've kind of been, whatever he gives us, we've been coming in about 2 to 3% below. So when he gave me 2.67, I said, we're using 0%. Well, May 5th, he gave me a new digest projection with an increase of 4.2. So if you'll look at the first line, that's your real property, that's what he gives us. Then your motor vehicle tax is the old car tax, and that's been going down every year since the new TAVT tax came into play, about 25%, so I decreased that one by 25%. Then if you go on down to public utilities, I'm not really sure what happened with public utilities in 2019. If you look at along for the last 5 years, it's usually hovered around, an average of 107 and then in 2019 it jumped all the way up to 119. So I just conservatively decided, okay, we're going to go back down to where it was. So I booked that as a decrease. And then for the M&O exemptions, that's been tracking, averaging about 10% increase every year. So of course that offsets what we can claim, charge for. So basically if you take the 4% increase and then these decreases and the increase in the M&O, you come down to about 1%, which is kind of what we've been tracking for the last couple of years. So I decided, okay, let's cross our fingers and go with a 1% increase in the digest. So if you go to the next page, you'll see that a 1% increase in the digest, and the budget scenarios we're looking at has a 0.75 increase in the millage rate. That'll generate a little over $4 million. That's down in the, well, it's in the yellow on the colored copy that I gave you. A couple things I just want to point out. I know a millage rate is always controversial increase. But, if you go back to before the recession, in 2007 we passed an East Bloss and we reduced the millage rate because we paid off all bond debt. So that went down from 16.230 to 15.23. Then the recession came within a year. And we kept the millage rate the same for years. But then the digest pretty much bottomed out in 2015. You'll see it went down to 3.9, and that's the lowest it's been since prior to the East Loss passing in 2007. And we went up by 1. And then the very next year, we were able to roll it back based on inflationary value in the digest. And we've kept it the same the whole time since then. So I just wanted to kind of point that out, because we go to the next page, and that's what we're looking at for the budget for next year. So, you know, as you know, we lost pretty much $11 million in lawsuits this last year, and we'll start the year with an estimated beginning fund balance of 12. And yes, that will be higher because we're saving money right now. Don't know how much yet, but probably $2 million at least, maybe 3. So then, if you add 3 to that, you're at 15 to start the year. The local tax increase with the millage rate increase would be equivalent to about $4 million. The CARES Act money that we're getting is $3,455,791. I'm going to need to give some of that back to food service because they've lost a lot of money since COVID hit. They're only getting reimbursed for the stuff that we're passing out on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but we're still paying all salaries out of their grant. And that is one of the allowable expenditures to use CARES Act for. So some of it, I've decided to give them about $455,000. Then we got word, the same day we got word that we're getting CARES Act money, we got word that your QBE money is being cut by 14%, which is $8,252,500. And that is just that 14% cut. I'm hoping that we won't have a big increase in our local fair share. So if that goes up some, that number could be even higher. That is just what I know from right now. So, you know, the CARES Act money, we're short $5 million. Then the other changes to what I've talked to you about before is, you know, before when we met, you know, when the legislature dismissed, they were planning on 1,000 for certified and 500. Well, that's not going to happen now. I haven't seen that per se in writing, but I'm pretty sure that's not. So I took that off the scenarios. And we are almost finished with staffing. I do have one more thing to look at for special ed, but the staffing, the new positions and the RIF positions are pretty solid. And next meeting, pending what we get from the legislature, I'll have a detailed list of what all is in these numbers. I just, you know, we've been working on this up to the last minute, so I haven't had time to do that yet. But one of the new big items on cuts for us for the general fund is, and I'm reluctant to do this, but I think we're safe in doing it for at least 1 to 2 years, is moving our annual PC refresh to eSplosh. You know, in eSplosh 3, we have a technology budget. We've never used eSplosh for our PC refresh that we do every year when we refresh, you know, like 4 to 5 schools every year. So if we move that to eSplosh, we can save $1 million in the general fund, but that will have to come back to the general fund if we run out of the technology money in eSplosh 3, which there's about $2 million there available, assuming we don't buy any more security cameras or anything else, which we won't. I mean, I'll have to keep it there. And assuming that we meet our targeted eSplosh revenues through the end of December. But anyway, the other reduction listed is summer school. You know, we're not doing K through 8 in the month of June like we normally do. We're going to do it, hopefully, do it in July, and it'll be short. So I was able to cut that budget by about $292,500. So as of right now, we have a budget deficit of almost $500,000 going into next year with the budget as it is pending final numbers from the state on revenue. And did you talk about spending resolution?
No, I hadn't talked about that. One thing that I think almost every district I've heard from other superintendents is, because we are not gonna have firm numbers, there's no reason to have, of course, budget hearings and get all that ready right now. We are likely gonna ask the board to pass a spending resolution, which keeps spending as is. It's kind of what you hear in Washington sometimes, like a continuing resolution, where we just have our budget the same, no changes for June. And then in July, when we, because the legislature's not talking about going back to June 11th, that's probably, by the time we get any numbers, it's gonna be after our June board meeting. And work session. So, but then this is again a great draft. She's working on this, just constantly changing, and I really appreciate it, because we're trying to show that we're trying to be very good fiscal stewards of what's going on. But we're probably, just like everybody else, is probably going to have to do this for a month. Hopefully not two, but again, we're not increasing anything. Nobody's going up in salary. Nothing changes from what we're doing currently right now, just so that you're giving us authorities to continue to spend money as is right now. So that's likely to be what we'll do in June.
Yes, so probably what will happen is in July, when we get the digest, we'll just do the millage rate
All at once.
and budget hearings all at once, and adopt a budget for next year in July. So the spending rate, the law says you have to adopt a budget by June 30, so that's why you can do a spending resolution to get around that.
Some districts apparently do this all the time. I don't know why, but like they wait for numbers. But I don't like it too much, but I think under circumstances it's certainly appropriate. The good silver lining is that you'll all have your meetings all at one time. You won't have to spread them out like you usually do over 2 or 3 months. So it'll kind of make that part a little bit easier, I guess.
So that 14% from the state,
Yeah.
Is that a done deal, or I know Governor Kemp
We won't
is-
know really
Yeah,
until they vote on it.
I know he's recommended.
And I doubt they'll vote the day they come back.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's talk, of course, of another spending bill by Washington that would kind of bail out or help support states that have had to go without spending. So that's the big next, they've done a lot for businesses, and they may still continue to do that, but, that's the next maybe big bill might be, and that would certainly help, but it might be after we have a budget, and then we get it back in October, but at least we've done a good job, and that money just would go right in our, general fund and help our balance anyway. So I think there may be some good news on that, but we just don't know yet.
Hopefully we'll get all that news before we adopt the millage rate.
Yeah, right.
Well, and how long can the county wait on the millage rate to be
I'd have to
determined?
ask Mr. Chapman, but he typically likes us to have it done by middle of August.
Okay.
It's usually the draft.
So if we can wrap it up in July, then that'll be okay. Okay.
Or even if we, wrap it up in August, but,
So that 3/4 of a mill is about $3 million, is that what you said, or am I?
it's 4 million.
It's 4
Three
million.
quarters of a mil
Three-quarters.
is 4 million. With a 1% increase in the property values. I'm hoping it comes in higher, and the M&O, the incentives don't increase as much as they have been increasing.
So if we
This
don't,
is just
if we don't
guesstimates.
increase taxes under this scenario, we're looking at being a little worse off as far as budget deficit as we were.
You're looking at being a 4 point,
We used to carry 3 point
2
something.
point, yeah, push 3, yes. I mean, that was when we had
Fund
money
balance.
in the bank.
Right. I know.
If we had not had to pay back those property taxes, we would not be looking at a millage rate increase. We would have fund balance sufficient enough.
And if we go forward with that, that's how I would like to say it. And how I will
We
say
had a
it.
rainy day fund, that was very nice, but
Mhm.
unfortunately
It
hit before the real
rained.
rain hit.
Yeah, and when all this started, we'd already given out contracts. So there's only, you start looking at positions and you've already got people with contracts, so.
You want to go with the financial? So on the action items that Ms. Preston would have on Tuesday would be the March 2020 financials, so let her go over that real quick.
And that one, we actually had a positive increase in our QBE money during our midterm adjustment of $625,000. That was the only budget amendment that was made to the general fund that increased revenues, expenditures overall. So we picked up $625,000 so they could take 14% of that extra $625,000 this year. But anyway, Year-to-date revenues represent 88.6% of budget. We were about at 88% the same time last year, so I don't know what Chapman's doing, but he's collecting taxes for us, I'll tell you that. And.
So $1 million over his regular budget, we're paying him to help him along a little bit, I guess. It's the new office.
And it's been all remodeled on there.
You're right,
Yeah.
so
It's very nice.
Needs some
makes you feel better about it.
Year-to-date expenses represent 69.5% of the budget, and last year we were higher than that, closer to 70%. So, I mean, you can see the savings and the salary and benefits on the first page of the financial report, where 71.2% spent below the budget of 73, and for fringe benefits, 70.8 below the budget of 73. So, definitely going to have savings. And then my East Plus collections, you know, this is always a month behind, but the month of March were February sales tax collections, and they were at 1.8, and that was 5% higher than the prior March. And as of the end of March, we were 5.24% higher than the prior fiscal year. And I guess did Al talk about this month's East Plus receipts, which were good?
Yes.
And that was shocking. And Steve actually, Salmon actually got a hold of some reports from the Department of Revenue, and interestingly enough, is broken down by different types of revenue, one being food/bars, and we were, as of January through April of this year compared to last year, it was only down $4,500, our receipts. So I think liquor sales and paper goods sales are probably carrying the load on that, because what you buy at the grocery store for food, we don't get a penny of that. We, you know, sales tax on food. So anyway, and accommodations, hotels and stuff were down 135,000. Auto sales down 2,700. Construction was up from last year to this year, 4,800. General merchandise, I'm assuming that's, you know, like belts and stuff like that, was down 25,000. I just don't think this month is a good reflection of what's going to happen for next month. I think that'll be our biggie. Homes was up 19,000, manufacturing up 4,600, miscellaneous, I don't know what all's in that, was down 14,000. Other retail up, and utility wholesale was down 21,000. So anyway, that was a nice surprise.
It'll
To
be
be above
interesting
the
to see what the
budget.
stimulus checks do, because that's going to fall into the next one.
That'll be in, yeah, your May
So
receipts for
Mhm.
April.
Right.
So we'll see what that actually turns into.
Be interesting. And you've got, the next is the Chief 3000 renewal.
Right, that's the software package we use, and we pay for out of Title I, and it's used to increase Lexile scores. This is from Leslie Scarborough. The program is intended to improve students' Lexile scores through the use of individualized, high-interest, nonfiction articles geared towards improving reading comprehension skills. This program is helping our schools gain higher ELA scores. And it is paid with Title I. It's a 3-year contract, and she was able to negotiate a $5,300 decrease in this contract. So
So that will be up for your approval on Tuesday, and so that'll be our recommendation. And then I think the last thing is classroom technology for Glynn Academy.
oh, that's for science
Yeah,
building,
science building, yes, ma'am.
and that would be is that the Dells? I didn't even look at this one.
No, it's
Oh,
flat
okay.
panel displays.
It's the
Smart
flat
panels,
panels. Smart panel. And did we go with state I can't even read that.
Yeah.
Was it state contract?
Yeah,
No, we didn't bidding.
We only had one bidder.
yeah.
Okay.
So is it Promethean boards, or is it just like a LED? It is Promethean boards?
Is it
Okay.
100 and not?
150, I think.
150,
Okay, there you go.
204.76.
So that would be our recommendation on Tuesday to approve that technology purchase for the new, or the remodeled state science building.
That's coming from East Class 3.
Yes.
Yes.
Can I just go back to the financial statement for a second?
Yeah.
You mentioned the budget position being favorable on the salaries and fringe benefits.
Yes.
Is that due to unfilled positions during
Yes.
the year? Because it really, this,
Unfilled positions, no overtime, no
okay,
additional, no athletic overtime, no SRO overtime, you know,
okay.
combination.
All overtime is covered.
And
Because we're
unfilled-
current-
mainly unfilled positions.
Yeah, but we're paying everyone.
Correct.
We're
We're just
paying
not paying
everyone.
for extra.
Correct.
And then in fact,
Yeah.
I think Paul talked to you guys about the unemployment, or did he?
Yes.
Right. So, the Department of Labor is supposed to be paying that bill. Because we filed it on their behalf. That's what we were told. Otherwise, we would be paying for all that. So we sent them a file.
Any other questions for Ms. Preston? Ms. Preston, before you back.
All right.
in a second. That's
Okay.
all the items I had for information and proposed action.
Thank you, Ms. Preston. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for land,
Legal and personnel.
legal, and personnel.
Yes.
So moved.
Ms. Sams makes the motion. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Mr. McDowell. All those in favor? 7-0 unanimous at 5:52. Ms. Susan? I'll make the motion to return to open session. Can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. McDowell, all those in favor? Unanimous.
To adjourn, second.
Yep.
Well, I'll make a motion
Ms.
to
Hamilton, motion
adjourn.
to adjourn,
Okay.
and Will McDowell, second. All those in favor? Adjourn. It's unanimous at 6:17.
Oh, God.